Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the next congressman from the 4th Congressional District, Danny Tarkanian.
Yeah. He needs to be doing the announcing at the UNLV games. That was wonderful. Hey, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out here. And I mean this, you know, we are at a very, very pivotal time in our country's history. There's a lot riding on this election. Every day I see in Clark County another Democrat, Biden, coming out, one surrogate after another. They got 2 or 3 coming out tomorrow to try to get people to register to vote. And they think they got the momentum going their way. You come out to a place like this, you see how many of you come in here on your Friday afternoon, how passionate you are, and we know that we got the right momentum and we're going to win the race, and thank you guys so much for coming out. You know, I want to thank the Nye County Republican Central Committee for putting this together, and Lisa Marie, she's done a great job getting this going great, so thank you so much. Hey, just a couple things. I've said before, and I don't know how many of you heard me speak before or not, but I believe deep in my heart that Nye County and Pahrump primarily is going to determine who's going to win this congressional race that I'm running in. I know how important you guys are, and I thank you so much for being out here. And I know that if we win our race, and our race is 12% more Democrats, Dean Heller is going to win the Senate race, and Governor Romney is going to win the state of Nevada, and we're going to sweep through this thing. I've had the pleasure growing up to first being a ball boy for my father, then playing for him, and then having a chance to coach with him in Fresno. And I can tell you there's few things more rewarding than going out and being a part of trying to help your father succeed. And I know this is got many sons, Governor Romney does, that are out here campaigning full time for him. I'm thankful I can introduce Josh, who's coming out here today, and he's going to speak to you in a minute. I know how special this is for him, but it all comes down to you guys getting out and helping his dad get elected to being successful, and that's where it all matters. So thank you guys very much. And here's Josh Romney.
All right. Thank you, Danny. This is great. This is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun to be out here and campaigning all across the country. I can usually tell how much my parents like me by where they send me in the state on a given day. So I was in January, it was negative 40 degrees in Fairbanks, Alaska, and so I was upholding street signs. I wasn't feeling real good about my standing in the family. But to be in Nevada today, this is as good as it gets. This is perfect weather. You guys have perfect weather here. It's a lot of fun to be here, so I know I'm doing well in the family today. We have a lot of fun campaigning all across the country. I mean, it's such a thrill to meet so many people who care so much about their country, who are fighting for their country, to make sure my dad's elected the next president. It's a lot of fun to do that. So I love the chance to come out and talk to you guys. This is great. I will tell you. There we go. I'll tell you when we started talking about getting into the race again this go around, it took some convincing for me and my brothers. To set up some background, in 2008 when my dad dropped out, that was hard for us. We were I remember he gave me a call the night before and said, well, I'm going to drop out tomorrow and support Senator McCain. And I was like, Dad, are you sure? Can we keep fighting a little longer? He's like, no, we've got to make sure that we keep the White House, that we don't allow Barack Obama to become our next president. He said, I think the best thing I can do is support Senator McCain, fight for him, work for him, do everything I can to make sure he's elected. And he did. He fought for him, worked as hard as he could. He knew what was going to happen if we elected Barack Obama, and he was right. He was exactly right. Kind of his worst case scenario is exactly what happened. And so he fought hard for him. But right after he dropped out, my mom, it was tough for my mom. It was an emotional thing to go through, to run an election like that and have to drop out. And my mom got a videographer and pulled him aside and said, I want to get this on video because I want to remember this, and I want you to remind me of this. She said, do not ever let me do this again. If I even think about it, I want you to slap me and remind me how hard it is. And we watched that later and kind of laughed. My dad saw it and said, well, Ann, you actually say that after every pregnancy. So the good news for me and my brothers is my mom has a very short-term memory. She forgets. She forgets the pain. And she was the one that 2 years later came to my dad and started pestering him again and saying, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this." And he said, we've done it. Didn't work out the first time. What makes you think it would work out differently the next time? And she said, "Well, let's look at the economy. At this point, we were at 12 or 13 trillion in debt, not 16 as we are now, but we're only at 12 or 13." And she said, "Can you turn the economy around?" And he said, "Yeah, I can do that. If I'm president, I could turn it around." And she said, "Well, then you don't have a choice to make. You have to run. You have to do this." And so she convinced him. And he started thinking he was going to do it and started thinking more about it. And then they came to the boys. And like I said, 4 out of the 5 of us said, "No way, we're not doing it." And so we started talking about it. And then I started thinking about my kids. I have 5 kids at home right now. And my wife is a saint to let me be out on the campaign trail. She is amazing. And so I started thinking about my kids and the legacy we're about to pass on to the next generation. Because now we're not 12 or 13 trillion in debt, we're 16 trillion in debt. And growing at $1 trillion a year. 4 more years of Obama, we'll be at $20+ trillion at least. And so I started thinking about my kids and what they were going to be left. And I thought, well, we can't afford not to elect my dad. We've got to do it. And so the brothers and I, we all jumped on. I will tell you, as we travel around the country, it's heartbreaking to meet so many Americans who are struggling under this economy. There's 23 million Americans who are out of work. It's really, it's just so unfortunate. I met a woman last night who was out of work, who was sleeping in her van, and the day campaigning and volunteering for my dad, making phone calls, because she recognizes the best hope she has to get a job is to get my dad elected. But it's heartbreaking. You think of 23 million Americans. These are real people, not just numbers. But you think of how many stadiums that would fill, how many people that is. That is just a real tragic number. Then you think of the $16 trillion in debt, and what we're about to pass on to the next generation of that debt. And that is not just an economic issue. This is a moral issue. You think of what we're about to pass on to the next generation. And then you compare that to what we inherited, each of us. Do we have any veterans in this crowd? Thank you so much. Thank you. You deserve a round of applause. Thank you so much for your service and your sacrifice for our country. There's nothing greater than you can do for your country than to serve in the military. And you think about these veterans and what they sacrificed for us, this country. And you think about the legacy of the World War II generation in particular, those people who fought and died in wars, who sacrificed so much to make sure that we inherited the greatest country this world has ever seen. You think about that legacy, and you compare that to what we're about to leave the next generation. And that's what we're fighting for. We cannot do this to our kids and our grandkids. We cannot leave them this amount of debt. Each of my kids right now owes the government, or owes the deficit $50,000. That is not fair. We cannot do that. We cannot continue to borrow more than we take in, to spend more than we take in. And right now, $1 trillion a year more than we take in. I don't know if anyone knows how much that trillion is, but it's more than we have. And my dad keeps talking about this test he'd put up that is, no one wants to spend, everyone wants to spend money, but then when it comes down to specific programs, no one really wants to get rid of anything. And so when my dad offers specifics, everyone gets upset. Oh, you can't cut this, you can't cut that. Well, he's going to put a litmus test to everything, and that is this so valuable? Is this program so valuable? We have to borrow money from China to pay for it. And when you think of it that way, there are a lot of things we're doing right now in this country that we shouldn't be doing. And a lot of places we're spending money, we shouldn't be spending money. I would tell you, my dad considers himself a frugal guy. I really know he's cheap. We learned that really early in our house. I remember going to Dad for money once, and it's like, man, I won't do that again. We go to Mom, it was very easy. But Congress is going to learn the hard way how hard it is to go to my dad to ask for money. They're not going to like it. But they're going to learn a tough lesson.
That's right!
It is not fun to go to my dad and ask for money. So this is going to be fun. I can't wait to see these senators and congressmen squirm when they ask for money from my dad. But I tell you, this election is so important. You think